Good morning. Happy Thursday. Allegra Ramos here, Beyond Your Wildest Dreams. And I'm so happy to have you here for my live video cast. If you want to watch the recording, this will go up as the Harness the Power of Planning podcast, episode 129. Oh my goodness. It's amazing how time flies. The days crawl, but the years fly. Anyway, I'm so excited to have you here today. And I put this down here because I forgot to mention it, and I wanted to make sure to mention it. I'm doing an amazing, if you say to yourself, I want to get more organized this year. Well, guess what? I'm going to do a 2-day event, and the 2 days, literally, it's 1 hour each day. And it's a Monday and a Wednesday. 2-day event called Get Organized 2026. It's in December, the first week of December, because I find that when I take a teensy bit of time to plan for the new year, it makes me roll into the new year without any of the holiday hangover or the new year anxiety. It just helps me flow it all together, which I love. So join me for that. And actually, I have a special yay, I'm so glad I put this here. So you can find out about that at tinyurl.com/getorganized2026. And I have a special code. So it's $50 to be part of the 2-day thing. And then I have a VIP if you want more time with me, one-on-one Q&As or group Q&As, but like live Q&As. It's going to be a small group. That is the VIP option is $100. So $50 for the 2 days, $100 for the VIP option where you get twice as much time with me. But I have a coupon code podcast that will get you 25% discount on the VIP package. So check that out. Hope you can join me. It's going to be super fun. I have never done this before, and I'm excited to try it out. So welcome. Now, originally, I had planned to talk about Thanksgiving planning in this episode. However, something happened on Tuesday that was so that I felt like I had to change the topic. And so if you see, the topic is how small daily changes can lead to big change, aka how I brought down 8 blood markers in 1 year. And I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV. This is just my experience that I want to share with you, which honestly I'm shocked by. Shocked. That's why I changed the topic today, because I felt like this was so important. I had to address it. Plus, if I have time, I will talk about Thanksgiving. And if not, I'm going to look up last year's Thanksgiving planning episode and rebroadcast that. So you'll have that. Okay. By the way, hey, y'all in all the different countries. Oh my gosh. Occasionally I look at the stats, and I am heard in over 60 countries now, which is amazing because I think last time I checked, I was heard in over 30 and now 60. So that's amazing. Welcome from all the places that you are located. It's so fun to see where everyone's listening. You know what? I'm just going to pull something up just to, to share, because I think it's interesting where all the places that I am heard. Let's see. Some of the places that I am heard that is amazing to me, because I'm like, I want to go to that country. I've never been there. That's so cool. Hold on. Having trouble getting into my podcast account. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Audience. Okay, geographic location. So, of course, the US is number 1. Guess what my number 2 country is? Can you guess? Can anyone guess? By the way, if you are joining me live, you can comment. I will see it in the chat. So feel free to comment. Guess what number 2 country is? Brazil. Hello, Brazil. So I don't speak any Portuguese. Muito obrigado. Thank you for being here. Brazil, France. Oh, merci. Germany. Guten Tag. As you can see, I did not prepare for this. This was not something I was planning on doing. Japan is 1, 2, 3, 5, number 5, and then India, the UK, Ukraine, Canada, South Africa, Russia, Bangladesh, Costa Rica, Mexico. Hola, ¿cómo estás? Sweden, Bulgaria, Saudi Arabia, Spain, Ireland, Turkey, Finland, Australia, Morocco, Barbados, Jordan, or the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. Okay, I'm just scrolling now, looking at some of the ones further down. Oman, Uruguay, the Philippines, Guyana, Ivory Coast, Nepal. People are listening in Nepal. That's amazing. Singapore, Kuwait, Kyrgyzstan. I was going to say Kazakhstan. No, Kyrgyzstan, Azerbaijan, Bermuda. It's Bahrain. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you for joining me. I'm so excited you're here. I'm so excited you're listening. That is so cool. Okay. So today I'm going to talk about how small daily changes can make a difference. And I also want to mention, please join me next week. I'm going to be interviewing my friend Diane Allen. We actually presented at a conference earlier this year to about 60 women executives. It was so much fun. I was talking about self-care, and she has written a book on flow. And she said some things that made everything click for me in my understanding of how flow affects me. And it was really quite a breakthrough for me. So I'm excited to have her here. If you've listened to my podcast before, then you know that I've actually mentioned a couple of things she said a couple of times. So hopefully it will be insightful for you, because when you find ways to access flow, it can make your everyday life so much more fun, uplifting, joyful, all of the above. So that is going to be next week. Super excited about having Diane join me next week. So please join me for that. So as always, I like to start by pulling a card from my little deck here and seeing what it says, because I never peek. So I have no idea what it's going to be. Let's see. Nothing is a waste of time if you use the experience wisely. Auguste Rodin. Nothing is a waste of time if you use the experience wisely. Absolutely. You know, I think another way to say this quote is, sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. And it's funny because I actually just saw an infographic about this. There is this person that I follow on LinkedIn. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's a illustrator. But all of his illustrations have to do with kind of sayings like this that make you think about things differently. And the cartoon that I saw this morning was a canyon. It showed a canyon with a precipice on either side. So there's like this big space in between these two plateaus. And it says, when you see it said, when you see challenges as things that stand in your way, and the challenges were depicted as diamonds, but they were like spikes, like they were going to hurt you. And then in the next cartoon, it said, when you see challenges as growth opportunities, and these same diamonds were stacked up inside that canyon and were providing a bridge from one side to the other side. And I feel like that's so true. In fact, I have a keynote called Forged that is all about how, the challenges I've had in life. Like when I was in my mid 30s, I was told that I would never, not that I would never walk again, but almost. I was told that I would basically never gain the movement I'd had before. I had a herniated L5S1, 8 millimeters, and I was told that I'd never walk like I had again, because I was literally hunched over 24/7. I couldn't straighten up. I couldn't straighten up even enough to drive. That's how hunched over I was. And basically, I was told that I would never get my mobility back. And that was, there were definitely times when it felt like the inverted diamond poking me. It was, I used to journal a lot more. Now I do more writing prompts, but I used to journal a lot, and I journaled back then. And the journals from back then are very illuminating, because I was seriously depressed going through that experience. And it's interesting because looking back, like, I don't remember the feeling of depression. I remember the challenge, but I don't remember the feeling of depression. But that experience definitely forged something in me that made me so much stronger than I was before. And so, as August Rodin says, nothing is a waste of time if you use the experience wisely. If you, whatever challenge you're going through, and this is how I look at my challenges now, whatever challenge you're going through, can you think of it as just a learning experience? It's an opportunity for you to level up. You're just on level 5 and you need to get to level 6. And this is the thing that you need to overcome to get to level 6. Can you do that? Because if you can do that, it shifts everything about the experience. And I have found it helps me to move through my challenges way faster and even sometimes enjoyably than when I'm like, oh, poor me, this sucks. So there you go. Thank you, August Rodin. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Someone tell me how to pronounce his name. Maybe someone in France, if you're listening right now. Okay, so what happened this week? As I mentioned in last week's episode, which I plan the topics in advance. So sometimes this is why I have to change things because something happens that I want to talk about. And so last week I talked about repetitive eating and how I have found it to help me really dial in my health. Now, I've been eating repetitively the way I described last week. I've been eating that way for a long time, decades. Now, not exactly that way, but 90% of that way. Because in the last year, I made some what seemed teeny tiny tweaks that have had massive payoffs. And I realized that there was a little calculation that I wanted to do before I got on here that I didn't have a chance to do. So I just want to look at this. Okay. So I will get back to that. So here's the thing. I have been having some sort of smoothie for years. I have been having a kale salad in the afternoon for decades. I have been eating repetitively for a long time. However, in 2024, I turned 50. And somewhere between 49 and 50, I must have hit some sort of health hurdle where suddenly things were like my 2023 blood tests were not horrible, but definitely a little bit elevated from 2022 and, kind of like perimenopause. I was definitely seeing the effects of perimenopause. However, from 2023 to 2024, it snowballed. And my 2024 blood results last year were problematic. Not, oh my God, we have to put you on medication. But if you do not get a handle on this, probably next year we will have to put you on medication. That's where I was. Also, I had noticed that between 2023 and 2024, my clothes were fitting snugger. I don't weigh myself regularly, but I was like, well, my clothes are fitting a little snugger. I wouldn't really say that I noticed a huge difference in like how I looked in the mirror, but I don't know. I kind of have positive body dysmorphia, if that's possible. Like I just am like, I look fine, whatever. I'm not particularly vain, as you see. I show up without makeup on most of the time. Just, however, I like when I speak at corporate events, whatever. I know how to present myself, but I'm comfortable talking casually with y'all. So I had crossed some sort of hurdle that was not a good hurdle. So last year, my blood tests, when I look at my blood tests online, I can click a button that says only show out of range markers because when I get my blood drawn, the doctor does like 50 tests and it's just so many to look at. So that way you can just look at the ones that are problematic. When I clicked that on, I had 8 markers that were problematic. including elevated liver enzymes. All of my cholesterols were high. I mean, the good cholesterol was in a good place, but all of the other cholesterols were bad. My ApoB was high, 111 to be exact. And so let's see, it's 4, 5, 6 liver enzymes. I'm just going to look it up. So anyway, 8 of them were high. And I committed to doing something because I did not want to go on any sort of medication. And I asked my doctor, can I do the blood test more often? Because I'm going to make some radical changes. Not radical as in huge changes, but radical as in meaningful daily changes. And the doctor said, sure, no problem. So I actually got my blood drawn 3 months after that, and then another 3 months after that. So let's say November of 2024 was when I got my problematic blood test. Then I had my blood drawn in February, March, and then in like April or May or something like that. And all of the indicators were going the correct direction. And so I was like, great, I'll get another blood test at my next physical. So my next physical was 2 weeks ago, and I did my blood draw on Monday. And on Tuesday, so 2 days ago, I got the results. And I did that same thing where I clicked on the button that says show out of range only. And I had only one item out of range. And it was interesting because the single item that was out of range was triglycerides. And I don't really know a lot about triglycerides. I'm just like, okay, out of range, not out of range. So I did a little digging on triglycerides, and I read that, it actually measures the amount of fat that you have in your bloodstream. Specifically, I think adipose fat. Not that I know the difference between the fats, but for some reason that word stuck in my head. And I thought, that's interesting, because as I mentioned last week, when I went to my doctor said, hey, you're 10 pounds lighter than last year. And again, I don't weigh myself regularly, so this wasn't something that I was tracking or hoping for or whatever. And so I thought, could I have more? Because not only were my triglycerides elevated, but from last year, my triglycerides had gone down at the 3-month mark and down at the 6-month mark, but now they were even higher than they had been a year ago. And apparently, as one is losing fat, it is released into your bloodstream and your triglycerides can go up. So really, that one elevated number is actually kind of cool, because it means that I'm burning some of this bad fat that I had been accumulating the last few years. So really, all 8 of my markers it was a good change, in my opinion. So what are the things I did? Here's the thing. I am so shocked. Like 8 markers all brought back to healthy places, or in the case of the triglycerides, a place where it's telling me that I'm doing a good thing. What I read online, by the way, is that, if you have experienced weight loss, you should wait until you hit a plateau, and then, like 3 months later, check your triglycerides, and then you can see where they are. So yeah, again, I guess I'll have to start weighing myself regularly, because it's not something that I do. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting and surprising, and I was very, very happy, because the results were so much better than I was expecting. When I got the blood test a year ago, I knew I wasn't going to do anything drastic. I wasn't going to become a marathon runner. I wasn't going to do a triathlon, nothing like that. But I knew I was also going to commit to small habitual changes. I'm all about habits. Habits are what get you the life that you want. And so I had said to myself, last year. It'll be interesting to see where I am in a year. I didn't want to put pressure on myself. I didn't want to say, oh my gosh, where am I going to be in 6 weeks? Previously, I used to really be into doing kind of like these 3-month challenges, especially with fitness, because it was a way to keep me interested in the exercise. However, it also kind of set a bad precedent because you'd be like, if you didn't see some radical shift in that time, I was kind of like, oh, that's a bummer. And so, because I knew this was going to be a lifelong thing, because the reality is my body's just changed, right? I'm on the verge of menopause. By the way, for those of you who don't know, menopause is a day. It's a day. It's a finish line. It is when a woman has not had her menstrual cycle for 12 months. Boom, menopause. It's that one day. The marathon beforehand that I have been engaged in for almost 11 years is perimenopause. And who knows, I might have been in it longer than that. But all I can tell you is when I started losing periods 11 years ago. That's perimenopause, that marathon that goes on for years. After you are postmenopausal. So menopause is just this one day in time. It's so funny because that's all we talk about. But it's this one day in time. And so my body has shifted radically. In fact, another thing that I learned, and I would love to do, I'm going to do some research on this because I'd love to talk about this in a topic, but apparently our brains shift from the type of fuel that they predominantly burn from glucose to ketones as we age. And I'm going to do some research on that. But basically, so many things about me have changed in the last, or been in the process of changing in the last decade, that I've had to relearn this body. Like I was living in this body, and for, except for being pregnant, for the last, for the 20 years before I was entering these hormonal changes, like things that were pretty stable, right? Like things change a lot until you go through puberty and stop growing. But then there's just this like 20 to 30 year span where, man, kind of nothing changes really. And now I am on the other side of that. I'm in the going through this other change, which hopefully this is the last time I do this, but no guarantees, right? Where I've had to relearn this body. So things that were working for me 11 years ago weren't working for me the same way. So I committed to making some small changes. And here are the small changes that I made that I am shocked at how much they've paid off. And this was the little calculation that I said I wanted to do earlier at the top of the show. As I mentioned, I have a smoothie pretty much every day. And I used to always put half a banana in my smoothie. And the banana was mostly there for texture because it gave my smoothie this nice creamy feel, but also to mask it for flavor, to mask the flavor of the pea protein, which can kind of have like a slightly bitter edge. So I stopped using the half banana a day, and I was able to find a sugar-free protein mix that tasted better. So I didn't notice the pea protein as much, not because of sweeteners in it, but because they put in other things like maca and cacao and whatever that were masking the flavor of the pea protein. And it was kind of a watery, it was almost like a green drink without the banana. So I added in a flax seed and wheat germ for thickening, but also for fiber. So I did away with the banana, which half a banana, that doesn't sound like a lot, but I just did the math. Half a banana daily. So half a banana is roughly 55 calories. So 55 calories times 365 days is 20,000 calories. 20,000. And if you think about it, apparently a pound of body fat is 3,500 calories. So right there, that's 6 pounds. 6 pounds that I think I just wasn't burning enough calories to earn that 55 calories every day. So I took out this tiny little thing, and it has had a huge difference. As I mentioned, my doctor said I'm 10 pounds less. I am shocked. Like, I really did not notice. I am not quite, I feel like it's funny. I don't feel like these 10 pounds came from like any one place, if you will. It's more just like, I think maybe like every single part of my body lost millimeters or maybe a couple inches or whatever. But I don't like, if you all look at my videos from a year ago, I don't think it's a radical difference or whatever. However, it's a radical difference in terms of my lab results. So that's pretty amazing. The other thing I did was I decided to prioritize fiber. And so that's why I just look for places to add fiber, like the flaxseed and the wheat germ in here. And also, I started adding in 2.5 tablespoons of chia seeds into my smoothie every day, because 2.5 tablespoons of chia seeds gets you 10 grams of fiber. My kale salads, I thought I was eating so much fiber with my kale salads. No, probably like 5 to 8 grams. So 2.5 tablespoons of chia seeds, 10 grams of fiber, and you get additional protein. So it was just an easy way to add in fiber, chia seeds. So did away with half a banana, added 2.5 tablespoons of chia seeds. The third thing that I did, and again, small daily change. The third thing that I did was I had been wearing a weighted vest when I would walk my dog every day. And the weighted vest was 20 pounds. And the thing is 20 pounds was nothing for me. I'm strong enough that I didn't notice anything. Now, I don't know, for those of you who listened, about 15 months ago, I went on a hiking camping trip and I overpacked my backpack. So, according to experts online, which this was not something I looked up in advance, which is why I learned this. Experts online say your backpack should be like, I don't know, 20% of your weight or something like that. And my backpack was probably like 40% of my weight or something, like maybe 35% of my weight or something. Anyway, I don't know exactly what my backpack weighed because I didn't weigh it, but I'm guessing it was close to 50 pounds. And I did it, but it was a bear. Like, it was a religious experience. I was praying, I was feeling it. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is the most challenging thing I've done physically in a long time." And after that hike, I was committed. I wanted to be stronger. I was like, you hear about people who go through basic training and they have to lug much heavier packs than that. I was like, I want to be able to lug a heavy pack. Also, if you've listened to my podcast before, you might know that I believe in emergency preparedness. And my emergency preparedness supply pack is heavier than, 20, 25 pounds. Like, it's heavier. So I was like, okay, well, I'm only doing 20 pounds. Why am I expecting to be able to do more? If I want to be stronger, I need to add more weight. So I purchased a 40-pound weighted vest, and you can take out the weights in the vest. And so when I first started using it, I think I had it at 24 pounds. And then I added in, I went up to 28 because each one is 4 pounds. I went up to 28, went up to 32. And then I hit 40. The first time I carried that 40-pound vest, it was a religious experience. So I do this walk with my dog. It takes me 26 minutes. It's roughly 1.5 miles. And when I did it with the 40-pound vest, the last 2 blocks, I literally had to turn to my husband and daughter and say, like, please do not talk to me. I just need to focus on this because I was feeling it big time. Now I can do the 40-pound. And so I wasn't always doing the 40 pounds every day when I first started doing it. But now I do the 40 pounds pretty much every day. And I'm getting to the point where I might have to add more weight because I do get a little bit sweaty, but I'm not challenged the way I was before. And I have started sometimes, like when my husband and I will walk together, bringing a 10-pound kettlebell with me so that I just don't want to have the 10-pound kettlebell while I also have the dog. So we switch. So yeah, so it's been great to see that I've gotten stronger, but I also definitely feel like I was burning more calories and building more muscle, like because of this switch. So those are the three things that I've done pretty much on the daily. Tweaks, really, tweaks. Doing away with the half banana, adding more fiber in the form of chia seeds. Oh, and I've also been adding beans to my salad, so getting more fiber there. So adding more fiber and then upping the weight on my weighted vest. Literally, I'm not doing any more exercise than I was a year ago. Exact same amount of walking that I was doing a year ago. I've just upped the weight. In fact, 2 years ago, I was doing way more exercise, which is maybe why I went down in 2024, as I mentioned. But I was doing way more exercise. Because I had this membership and I was doing tennis and I was playing soccer and whatever. And I decided I had to pull those back in order to work on more professional goals that I've had. And so, yeah, so not more exercise, just added heavier weights. 3 things, 3 small daily habits that have added up to editing 10 pounds from this frame and reducing 7 markers. Although really that triglyceride one, I mean, it's kind of a good thing, right? Noticeable difference in these 8 markers that I had been in a unhealthy zone with just a year ago. So my question to you is this: what change do you want to make in your life? In fact, this could be a great journaling prompt. Maybe consider grabbing a pen or pencil, and answering this question. What change do you want to make in your life in the next year? Actually, this is perfect for Get Organized 2026. Let me put that back up there. Join me for Get Organized 2026. This is a perfect prompt to help you think about Get Organized 2026. What change do you want to make in your life in the next 12 months? And what small daily things can you do that are going to move the needle forward? And maybe you need to research this. I had been listening to this book by Dr. Michael Greger, his whole How Not to Die series. Is this a series? How Not to Die, I forget what the other ones are called. And it's not about how to live forever. It's about how not to die from heart disease, how not to die from cancer, like that. You might have to do some research. You might have to read some books, listen to some podcasts, do some research online. I don't use AI the way some people are using AI, like Google searches. I find that there's a lot of flaws in the stuff it returns to me. So I prefer to do my own research and read websites that I know and trust to find data. So I would suggest that perhaps. What small daily actions, I had 3, maybe find 3 actions that you can do almost daily to make this change in your life. And then do the things and don't measure your success for a year. Take that pressure off yourself, because here's the thing. Like, yes, my blood tests, there was a noticeable difference 3 months into these changes and 6 months into these changes. But from a weight, fat, inches perspective, I didn't start noticing anything until about 10 months. That's when I was like, these pants don't seem like I don't think this is just me stretching them out. Like, they seem noticeably looser. I didn't notice that until like a couple months ago. So it took 10 months of these things for that to be a difference. And again, that wasn't a goal of mine. I was focused on the lab results. That was what I really wanted to affect. But whatever it is that you're working on, Give yourself a year. Because you know what? Everything you want can happen faster than you believe, but slower than you desire. Okay? I just coined that phrase, Allegra Ramos. Everything you want can happen faster than you believe, but slower than you desire. Would I have liked to have had instantaneous 8 blood markers better? Of course. Who wouldn't? However, are my results better than I thought and faster than I thought? They are. They are. They have been. So give yourself a year to work on this thing because a year passes faster than you think. Here I am on the other side of it, just like mind blown at the results. I have completely shifted my health in 1 year. And by the way, a year ago, I did not feel unhealthy. If it weren't for the fact that I have been getting my blood tested every year for decades, it probably would have gone on for a while before I was complaining about any sort of aches or pains or my weight got to a place where it was just like really problematic. So, it's good to catch these things before you, go over the cliff of no return. Pull yourself back and give yourself a year. And you might be amazed at what you do. So join me next week. As I said, I am interviewing my friend, Diane Allen. She's an expert on getting into flow. So fun. I'm looking forward to that conversation. And if you've been saying to yourself, I want to get more organized, then join me for Get Organized 2026 at tinyurl.com/getorganized2026. Remember, special promo code podcast gets you 25% off the VIP package for that. Look forward to you joining me. Thank you for listening. Wherever you are streaming this, be sure to like and subscribe. It helps me provide you with great content, and it costs you nothing to hit that little button for me. So I appreciate you. I look forward to seeing you next week as I interview my friend Diane. And remember, planning makes everything easier. Bye.